My wife slept with my boss and stole $200, $0 from our joint account, then convinced our lawyer to freeze my access just as I found out. Now she's claiming I'm the one planning to take everything in a court battle I never saw coming. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this. Honestly, I always thought I had it all figured out, married to Lisa for almost 10 years, a good job, a nice house, 2 kids. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I never suspected she'd be capable of what I found out that night. The thing is, it wasn't just the affair that hit me like a freight train. It was the way she did it, so brazen, so cold, like she thought she could get away with anything. And the money, that was the real kick in the teeth. I'll get to that in a minute, but first, the moment I knew something was wrong. It started a few weeks ago. Lisa was acting weird, distant, distracted, always on her phone, hiding her screen. She'd snap at me over small things, and I caught her in little lies about where she was going or who she was talking to. Nothing concrete, just gut feelings that something was off. I tried to brush it off, tell myself I was overthinking, but I couldn't shake this feeling that I was missing something big. Then one night I came home early from work. I've been working late a lot lately, big project deadlines, the usual, but that night I decided to surprise her. I was just walking in the door when I saw her unzip her dress as she hurried into the bedroom. I froze. My stomach dropped. She wasn't alone. I saw her with another man, my boss, Mark. They were tangled up on the couch, clothes half off, their faces flushed. I couldn't believe it. My mind went blank. I saw everything in that moment. The way she looked at him, like he was the only thing that mattered, and I felt this icy numbness spread through me. I didn't say a word. I just backed out quietly. Went straight to my office and sat there staring at my phone, trying to process what I'd just seen. I kept asking myself, is this real? Is this really happening? The next day was a blur. I couldn't focus at work. I kept replaying that scene in my head over and over. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there. Her lipstick on his collar, the way she answered her phone with a nervous laugh when I called her that morning. I needed a plan. I knew I couldn't confront her without proof. So I started digging, trying to find out what I could. That's when I found the bank statements, money gone. Over $200, $0 from our joint account, just vanished. I looked at the transactions, the wire transfers, gone to some account I'd never seen before. My heart sank. Lisa had been secretly draining our savings for months, I think, and I didn't even realize it. I was furious, crushed, betrayed. How could she do this? Cheating on me, stealing from us, and then trying to keep it all hidden. It was like she was playing some game and I was the fool. I felt humiliated. Like I'd been blind to everything. And the worst part, I still had no idea how deep it went. Did she tell Mark about the money? Was this just about sex, or was there a bigger plan? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I kept thinking about was how I'd trusted her, how she'd lied to me for months, maybe longer. I had to find out what was really going on, and I knew I had to do it fast. But I also felt this strange numbness, like I was already preparing myself for the worst. Because I knew deep down that my wife wasn't just sleeping with my boss. She was using him to take everything I'd worked for. And I had no idea how to fight back yet, but I was about to find out. The next few days were a nightmare. I couldn't keep my mind off what I'd seen, what I'd uncovered. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa and Mark on that couch, their faces flushed, the betrayal so raw I could almost feel it. I kept looking at the bank statements, trying to connect the dots. How long had she been stealing from us? Was it just that $200, $0, or was there more? I started thinking about everything we'd built, the house, the kids' college funds, my retirement. All of it potentially gone because of her greed and her lies. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed proof. I couldn't just accuse her out of the blue. So I set up a little surveillance, nothing illegal, just enough to catch her in the act again if she slipped up. I kept my phone ready, waiting for that moment when she'd slip up or say something revealing. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I found out she'd been talking to Mark's wife, Lisa, too. That woman was just as manipulative, trying to cover for her husband and my wife. It was like a web of lies, and I was stuck right in the middle. One afternoon, I came home early again, just to see if I could catch her in the act. I didn't want to be sneaky forever, but I needed proof. I waited in the dark, heart pounding, until I heard her voice in the kitchen. She was on the phone with someone, probably Lisa, I guessed, and I could hear her voice sharp and bitchy. She was arguing about the money, about how she needed more, how she was planning to get it all. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was openly talking about her schemes, her lies, and I realized she thought she was untouchable. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I couldn't sit back and let her destroy everything I'd worked for. I had to act. I waited until she hung up, then confronted her in the living room. Her face twisted into a sneer as I laid out what I knew about the affair, the stolen money, the lies. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk and said, "Oh, come on, Jack, you're overreacting. It's just sex and the money. You're making it bigger than it is. You're paranoid." I felt my blood boil. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend it was all just a misunderstanding? She spun her story fast, trying to turn it around on me. Said I'd been distant, that I'd been imagining things. That Mark and her were just friends, that the money was a mistake, a misunderstanding. But I knew better. I'd seen the truth with my own eyes. Still, she kept lying, twisting everything, trying to make me doubt myself. And I knew I had to keep my cool, even though inside I was screaming. I told her I'd be talking to our lawyer, that I was done playing her games. She rolled her eyes and said I was paranoid, that I was about to ruin everything. That's when I realized how cold and calculated she'd become. She was convinced she was untouchable, that she could lie her way out of anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the confrontation, trying to figure out my next move. I'd always believed in honesty, in loyalty, but now I saw that my wife was capable of anything. I felt betrayed, angry, and honestly a little scared. I'd trusted her with everything, my heart, my money, my life, and she turned around and stabbed me in the back. I knew that the betrayal was deeper than just the affair. It was about the money, the lies, the way she'd manipulated everyone around her. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to do something fast. I couldn't let her get away with it. I just didn't know how much more she was capable of until I found out what she'd do next. Over the next couple of days, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Every time I thought about what Lisa had done, my stomach clenched tighter. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair and the money. It was about how she'd lied to me, manipulated everyone, including the lawyer. I kept asking myself how I could have missed all the signs, how she managed to keep this secret for so long. I guess I was naive, or maybe just too trusting. Either way, I knew I needed to get legal advice. I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings. I contacted a lawyer I knew from work, someone recommended highly for family law. When I sat down with him, I laid everything out: the affair, the stolen money, the shady conversations, the lawyer's own involvement. I showed him the bank statements, the wire transfers, the texts. He looked at me seriously and said, "Jack, this is serious. If she's been draining your account and lying about it, you need to act fast. We can freeze her access to your joint accounts, and I can start working on how to protect what's yours." I felt a flicker of relief hearing that. At least I had someone on my side. But I also felt sick. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my marriage, my trust, my entire life falling apart. My wife was a different person now, someone I didn't recognize. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. I kept thinking about the kids, how they'd be affected by all this chaos. I didn't want them to see their father broken, but honestly, I was already shattered inside. That afternoon, I decided I had to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I told her I was going to take control of the finances, that I was going to protect what was left. She looked at me with that same snide smile, trying to play the victim. She said, "You're just trying to control everything, Jack. You're paranoid. I don't know what you think I've done, but I swear I haven't done anything to hurt you." I stared at her, knowing she was lying again. I told her I knew about the money, about her plans with Mark, and that I wasn't going to let her ruin us. That's when she snapped, started yelling, calling me paranoid, accusing me of trying to destroy her, of being the real villain here. I didn't lose my temper. I just calmly told her I was done listening to her lies. I said I'd be talking to the lawyer and that she should prepare herself for what was coming. She sneered, told me I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything because I was insecure and jealous. But deep down, I knew she was scared. She knew I was serious now and she realized her game was up. I also knew I couldn't trust her anymore. Not after all the lies, the betrayal, the stolen money. The woman I once loved was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of everything she'd done. The next day, I moved to freeze her access to our joint accounts. It was a cold move, but I had no choice. I needed to protect what little was left. I also started gathering more evidence, screenshots of messages, copies of bank statements, everything I could find. I felt like I was building a case against her, not just for the divorce but for the betrayal of everything we'd built. I knew this was only the beginning, but I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, not without a fight. And honestly, I was already feeling the emotional toll. This whole situation was draining me, pushing me to the edge. But I couldn't afford to fall apart now. I had to be strong for me, for the kids, for whatever was left of my dignity. The days that followed felt like some twisted nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I had the lawyer working on freezing her accounts, securing my access, and starting the legal process. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude shifted from confident to outright hostile. She was screaming at me, calling me paranoid and delusional, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. But I knew better. She was the one who'd betrayed me at every turn, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this one. One evening, I caught her in a lie again. She told me she was going out with her friends, but I saw her leaving the house with a bag in her hand, heading toward Mark's place. I followed her, sneaking behind as she parked her car outside his house. I watched her go inside, and I felt this strange mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly, knowing I was already on to her? It was like she thought she was invincible. That night, I decided I had to confront her directly, no more waiting around. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen her with Mark, that I had all the evidence. I told her her lies wouldn't work anymore. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, then suddenly turned cold. She said, "You're just jealous. You think I'm doing this because I want to hurt you. Please, Jack. I did what I had to do. You're just too blind to see the truth." Her voice was icy, and for a moment I wondered if she even believed her own lies. I felt this surge of anger, but I kept my composure. I told her I was done with her games. I was going to take her to court. And I was going to get everything back. Our money, our house, everything she tried to steal. That's when she snapped, yelling that I was the one planning to take everything, that I was trying to destroy her because I was insecure, jealous, and controlling. She accused me of being the real villain, the one tearing our family apart. I just stared at her, feeling this strange emptiness. How did it come to this? How did the woman I loved become this cold, manipulative person? I realized that her lies were endless. She'd spun this web so intricately that even her closest friends believed her version of the story. She told everyone I was abusive, that I was trying to take the kids away, that I was the reason our marriage was falling apart. Meanwhile, she had been secretly draining our account, sleeping with my boss, and lying through her teeth. It was surreal. I felt like I was in a bad movie, except it was all real. I knew I had to stay strong. I told her I was going to fight for what's mine, and I was going to expose her for who she really was. I said I'd do everything in my power to make sure she paid for what she'd done, not just financially but emotionally. I told her I wasn't going to let her ruin me or the kids. Her face twisted with rage, but I saw the flicker of fear behind her eyes. She knew I was serious now, and she realized her manipulations weren't going to work anymore. That night, I stayed up late, going through every message, every bank statement, every piece of evidence I could find. The plan was clear. I was going to take her to court, get the judge to see her for what she really was, and reclaim what I could. I also knew I had to prepare myself emotionally. This was only the beginning, and I wasn't sure how much more I could take, but I had to keep fighting for myself, for my kids, for the truth. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without a fight. The court date was set a few weeks later, and I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. Everything about this felt surreal, like I was living someone else's nightmare. Lisa was already spinning her stories, telling everyone I was the one trying to ruin her life, claiming I'd been abusive and controlling. She played the victim perfectly, as if she hadn't just slept with my boss, stolen our money, and lied to everyone around us. The more I heard her spin her web, the more I realized how deep her deception went. On the day of the hearing, I sat in the courtroom, heart pounding, trying to keep my nerves in check. I had all the evidence: bank statements, messages, witness testimonies from friends who saw her sneaking around. I was ready to tell the truth, no matter how ugly it was. When Lisa's lawyer started her side, she painted me as some jealous, paranoid husband who was trying to control her. She claimed I'd been emotionally abusive, that I was trying to take everything from her because I was insecure. I clenched my fists, feeling the anger boil inside me, but I kept my face calm. When it was my turn, I presented everything: the bank records showing the stolen money, the texts from her talking to Mark about their plans, the witness statements. I told the court how she'd been planning this for months, how she manipulated everyone around her, including her own friends. I explained how I'd caught her in the act with Mark, how she'd lied about everything, and how she'd drained our savings, leaving us financially devastated. I made sure to stay composed, speaking clearly and confidently, knowing that the truth was on my side. Lisa's reaction was priceless. Her face went pale when I revealed the bank transfers, her eyes darting around nervously. She tried to interrupt, to spin more lies, but the judge cut her off. I could see the wheels turning in her mind. She was realizing that her carefully constructed web of lies was unraveling fast. The judge listened intently, asking questions, demanding proof. When I handed over the evidence, her facade started to crack. She tried to deny everything, but the judge wasn't buying it. After hours of testimony and evidence presentation, the judge made a ruling. She ordered Lisa to return the stolen money, to pay damages, and to cease all contact with Mark. She also granted me sole custody of the kids, citing the betrayal and financial recklessness as reasons. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me, but I also knew this was just the beginning of a long fight ahead. The emotional scars ran deep, and I knew Lisa wasn't going to go down without a fight. The aftermath was brutal. Lisa's facade of innocence crumbled completely. She threw tantrums, accused me of trying to destroy her, and even tried to turn the kids against me, telling them I was the bad guy. I stayed strong for their sake, but inside I felt broken. I'd lost the woman I loved, and now I was fighting to keep what little I had left. Her lies continued to spread, but I had the truth, and I was determined to hold on to it. Looking back, I realize how much I underestimated her. She was a master manipulator, and I was blind to her true nature for too long. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to get your life back. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I still hurt, still wonder how I got here, but I know one thing for sure: I'll never let someone like her destroy me again. I've come out of this battered but wiser, and I'm finally starting to piece my life back together. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding what I could and trying to make sense of everything. The court's decision was a huge relief, but the emotional toll was something I carried with me every day. I moved out of the house, not because I wanted to run away from my problems, but because I knew I needed space to breathe, to heal. The house where we raised our children, once full of love and trust, now felt cold and empty. Still, I visited often, making sure the kids knew I was there for them, no matter what. Lisa's lies kept coming, but I refused to get pulled into her web anymore. I had learned that some people are just fundamentally broken, selfish, manipulative, and willing to do anything to protect themselves. I saw through her new stories, her attempts to guilt me or turn the tables. I knew she was still angry, still bitter, but I didn't care. I had what I needed: the truth, the evidence, and my dignity. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about setting things right for myself and my kids. I also started therapy. Honestly, I needed to process everything: the betrayal, the anger, the sadness. I realized I'd been living in denial for too long, ignoring the signs, trusting her too blindly. Now I was finally facing the reality of what she'd done and learning how to move forward. It's not easy. Some nights are still hard, and I catch myself wondering if I could have done something differently, if I could have saved the marriage. But deep down, I know she made her choices, and I couldn't fix them anymore. One thing I've learned from all this is the importance of trust, how fragile it is and how easily it can be shattered. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, for your dignity, and for the truth. I don't regret standing up for what's right, even if it meant losing the woman I thought I knew. I've come to accept that some people aren't worth saving if they're willing to betray everything you stand for. Now, I focus on my children and myself. I've started dadding again, cautiously, taking it slow. I've realized that life goes on and happiness is still possible, even after betrayal and heartbreak. I don't hold on to anger anymore. Instead, I choose to learn from it. I hope that sharing my story might help someone else who's going through something similar. Trust is sacred, and when it's broken, the road to healing is long, but it's worth it. I've learned that no matter how dark things get, there's always a way back to the light. Sometimes, you just have to find the strength to walk that path.